Welcome back to Certified Yapper Girl. Now, today we're going to be talking about the cautionary tale of Taylor. If you're not aware of Love Island 1, I strongly recommend that you watch it. It is a bit of a longer watch than any other reality TV show I'm aware that's out there, but I promise you, you can just watch the highlights. It is drama packed and drama filled. I've ignored the Love Island itch for so long, and season 7 finally brought me into the fold. I love it. Well, let me not say that. I love the drama, and I think it is just like a cesspool for sociological takes and just commentary overall. That being said, we're going to be focusing on Taylor Williams. If you're not familiar with Taylor Williams, he was a contestant that emerged on Love Island USA season 7. Now, he was a 24-year-old Oklahoma cowboy and model with some may describe as an easygoing charm. Now, on screen, he quickly bonded with his peers, and for the first bit of Love Island, he definitely was like a fan favorite. People definitely liked him. And he also formed the very tight-knit group of men that were in Love Island for this season called the Tres Leches. This was a friendship trio that followed the male islanders of Nick and Ace and Taylor. Now, these guys were often seen, especially Taylor, the persona was very goofy, very funny, very lighthearted, and you definitely saw that in the villa. You would think he was like a goofy Gerber, which he definitely is. Again, some people find this appealing, not me. But in any aspect, in romantic situations, Taylor's behavior really revealed a man that was strongly driven by spark and so-called kid feelings, if you will. He initially built a slow burn connection with his day one partner, Olandria, emphasizing, friendship over so-called physical passion. Now, again, this is Love Island, this is not Friendship Island. So, hindsight is 2020. For about 3 weeks, Taylor and Alondria were getting along well, but it was very obvious that they lacked immediate physical chemistry. Instead of, developing that chemistry, we saw that they kind of just got comfortable in that camaraderie. Now, this was not by any fault of Alondria's, in my opinion. I think she definitely did try to initiate that type of intimacy. However, on Taylor's end, it definitely did seem a lot colder towards her, and it definitely did seem like he was stringing her along. But I am getting ahead of myself. This definitely messed with Alondria, if you will, because context is everything. Alondria was coming out of 5 years of being single and was earnestly looking to, gain the most from her Love Island experience, to leave the island with love. That's what people are supposed to go there for, not fame. However, Taylor's romantic decision took a sharp turn when a new love interest arrived. During the shows like Casa Mora Twist, where new bombshell contestants enter, Taylor experienced an almost instantaneous spark with a newcomer, Clark Caraway, a 24-year-old cheerleader and behavioral health specialist, which is gonna come in handy, definitely, when dealing with Taylor. But also, I think I think also Clark being a behavioral health specialist definitely aided how she was perceived and how she reacted, I think, a lot in the villa, and especially when dealing with Taylor, because there's so many times Clark is a class act. I will always believe that, and I have nothing bad to say about her, except a couple of times where she was kind of sort of being shady. But anyways, they start coupling up, and we see Taylor kind of do a shift from being very guarded and very loyal, if you will, to now being an impulsive risk taker almost overnight. Despite quote-unquote having a genuine connection with Alondria, Taylor admitted that Clark gave him a spark I didn't have with Alondria, a whole different feeling. This passionate, emotionally charged this emotionally charged side of Taylor was largely unseen in his time with Alondria and drove him to ultimately end up recoupling with Clark after barely knowing her for 72 hours. I repeat, 72 hours. Bear in mind, he was with Alondria for 3 weeks. Now, ladies, if there's anything to take away, I think, in this cautionary tale that is Taylor Williams, men know what they want, and if you are not getting what you need or what you want from them, and they're not doing anything about it, chances are they are stringing you along until a better option comes their way, which is exactly what we saw here. Instead of being a man about, telling Alondria how he felt and that he was not physically attracted to her, which he has admitted, and you have to be crazy to not be attracted to Alondria, but we'll get into that in a minute. Yeah, instead of telling her straight up that, hey, the connection isn't there, and letting Alondria go, which would have been the sensible thing to do, but also the kind thing to do. We saw that he definitely strung her along. Now, was this to stay in the game, to stay on the island? I think so. I think it was strategic. I think it definitely was intentional. That he strung her along and waited until something better came along that gave him that kid feeling. But hey, love is messy. What can you do? Now, that being said, Taylor's handling of the relationship also showed just poor communication and a lot of empathy blind spots. He did not clearly communicate his waning romantic interest to Alondria as it happened, and instead kind of just coasted on their friendship bond until a better option appeared. And even by his own later acknowledgments, he knew fairly early on that his feelings for Alondria weren't deepening. And he even said, and quoted, "I know that really upset America because it was seen that when all the voting changed for me." And he noted that of switching after 3.5 weeks. Yet on the show, he continued to share beds and small affections with Alondria, leading her on in the viewer's eyes. Because again, I do think that this is very interesting when you put a couple of hot people in a villa together under these circumstances, what really happens in terms of the socio-dynamics that come out of it from what's happening in the villa and then how we perceive it as the audience. So I definitely do think that that is very interesting, and you do have to keep that as a caveat. Now, the conflict avoidant streak kept Alondria invested and arguably strung along, a perception that Taylor has had to defend himself against. He shot down the allegations that he led Alondria on, insisting that he was interested in her and that he simply found something more with Clark. Now, do I think this is earnest? No, I think he definitely knew, because if you weren't attracted to her initially, this is Love Island. This is not Friend Island. I feel like you definitely probably saw someone there that you were more physically attracted to. You have the recouplings, you have so many chances to explore. You could have pulled persons for chats. I think there were so many ways to go about it. Taylor's unwillingness to proactively level with Alondria about his doubts meant that the eventual break was far more painful and honestly dramatic. We see in summary that when they have the stand on business challenge, that Alondria has ultimately reached her breaking point because he had not yet physically come out to her and said, I want to be with Clark, and that is where we had birthed the infamous moment, I pick Clark. Yeah. In summary, Taylor's behavioral profile is that of, in my opinion, someone who is definitely personable, but we see that he also demonstrates impulsivity and he lacks foresight into managing other people's feelings. He follows his emotions even at the cost of breaking trust, and in my opinion, it shows a stubborn confidence in his choice, telling critics that he could care less about outside judgment, about, he knows his connection is real. There is a mix of, in my opinion, there's a sense of authenticity, but also a lack of callous insensitivity that defines Taylor's polarizing journey in the villa. Now, I want to get into specifically the case study of Taylor's treatment of Alondria. Now, from day one, Taylor and Alondria entered a coupling that felt comfortable but not combustible. Alondria is 27 years old from Alabama, and Taylor bonded as, being Southern from day one. And they spent a lot of time nurturing their close friendship. As I said before, and as I will continue to say, this is Love Island. This is not Friendship Island. Olandria was definitely committed to Taylor, notably. She even turned down advances from another islander, Jalen, to remain loyal to Taylor, hoping that their slow build rapport would blossom into love. Now, I definitely do think that this was extremely calculating from Taylor's side because he blocked her from really exploring any interest in Jalen in an effort to keep himself on the show. That's just my opinion. That's my take. Cry about it in the comments. Now, on her side, I feel like Alondra definitely expressed genuine feelings and a desire for a long-lasting relationship. She has been very clear, and she confided on screen that she had been single for 5 years and entered the villa earnestly looking for love, which made her devotion to Taylor especially heartfelt. We all saw when she was down bad taking those pictures in the booth. Oh, yeah, it was hard. Now, Taylor responded to this warmth and kindness in their day-to-day interactions. However, it was very telling that he showed very little physical and romantic initiative. Observers also noted that Alondria often had to prompt any type of intimacy. For example, she would have to ask for kisses, reassurance, while Taylor's affection remained lukewarm. In hindsight, other islanders and fans realized that Taylor's behavior towards Alandria was more platonic than passionate. Which, hindsight is 2020, but it was simply that he was just not that into her, and that is fine. He rarely touched her. He did little flirtation, which Alandria initially interpreted as being respectful in their courtship, which we do have to remember that Alondria is new to the game. She's not true to it. We have to keep that in mind. But later on, we could definitely have interpreted this as overall disinterest. He really was not attracted to her. He has stated that he really did not see himself being long-term with her. I felt like maybe in the first week he was trying to earnestly give it a shot, but at the end of the day, there is such a thing as compatibility, and they just didn't have it, and that's fine. Trouble definitely resurfaced and twisted as the couple separated. Now, Alondria stayed back in the main villa, briefly participating in a twist appearing with Nick, one of Taylor's close friends. Taylor's head was turned by bombshell Clark. He admitted privately that Clark ignited feelings in days that he hadn't felt with Alondria in weeks, and this became very obvious in his demeanor. By Casa Amora's end, Taylor told the others he hoped to keep exploring both women, but his giddiness with Clark was really evident. Ultimately, at the recoupling ceremony, Taylor walked back in holding Clark's hand and choosing Clark and leaving Alondria single. This moment was really devastating for Alondria because she looked completely shocked that Taylor would have disregarded their 3-week partnership for a 3-day fling. Now, Alondria was palpably hurt. She had remained loyal during the separation only to see Taylor return with someone new. She stood there blindsided, and it was honestly her worst fear materialized on national television. Also, I do think that there is just a sense in Alondria of wanting to be picked and wanting to be chosen, as I think there is in all of us, that earnest feeling of, wanting to be chosen by someone who you like. And more as I rewatch it, you see time and time again where she puts herself on the line and really using it to the full capacity of, saying, hey, I'm here, I like you, I want to explore this connection, almost embarrassingly so, which again, it's hard, especially for Black women. It is hard for them to it's hard for us to put themselves on the line like that. It is hard. But yeah, when he did that, you could definitely see that the fellow female islanders really rallied to Alondria, and a lot of them sharing disbelief and anger. Now, in the days that followed, tensions really lingered in the villa. Taylor attempted to justify his choice as following his heart, but ultimately there was little closure between him and Alondria. The situation came to a head during a dramatic challenge named Stand on Business. In this exercise, Islanders aired grievances and truths in front of everyone. And obviously, Alondria seized the moment to chance finally confronting Taylor about his treatment of her. She expressed heartbreak, confusion, and felt as being cast aside after investing so much, which rightfully so. She invested like 3 weeks of not entertaining anybody else, which some would argue was definitely not smart on her part. She shouldn't have been putting all her eggs in one Taylor basket, but it is what it is. Taylor, for his part, had directly acknowledged, the end of their relationship. According to, reports, he broke things off with Alondra definitively during this challenge. And again, that is where we got the very memeable moment, I pick Clark. Yeah, so that was really difficult. Emotionally, she was shown in tears, confessional segments, grappling with the feelings of rejection, and obviously moments of self doubt. She opened up about her loneliness and the intent to find love, so the public breakup hit hard. But to be honest with you, Alondria herself is also such a class act. She demonstrated such resilience, An ironic twist of fate, circumstances soon paired her with Nick, which is really the love story that is the happy ending for Alondria. Now, if you haven't watched Love Island, obviously there are like a bunch of challenges that the islanders have to do to see who they are most like attracted to. There's a lot of kissing, there's a lot of sharing of spit, there is a lot. Now, most notably, we saw that Nick was definitely picking Alondria for a lot of his challenges. Now, was this a producer setup? Or was this just genuine attraction? I do believe that it was a little bit of both. I do think that the producers peeped that he was definitely attracted to Alondria, and Alondria being lost in the sauce of Taylor just didn't peep it as yet. But the producers definitely saw that. Yeah, and for those of you guys who don't know, Taylor and Nick, them being best friends, you think that there was some level of awkwardness, but there wasn't. They're all cool coming out of the villa. One thing that I do want to emphasize is that throughout all of this, there has been a division on the internet between, whether you're Team Clarkit, or Team Alondria. Now, I want to say that I don't want to spread any hate to either of these women. These are two beautiful black women who honestly deserve the world. Do I think Taylor is the world for Clark? Absolutely not. If you have been keeping up with them, this man is diabolical. He is not generous. He's not very nice. He comes from a very rich family. And I think on live, he almost threatened to return all of her Louis V bags. There are a lot of moments of him being aggressive with her, pushing her head, and just not being the nicest person. So much so that there are reports that possibly Clark is homeless, and that is why she's staying with him, because there's no other reason. That being said, there's nowhere to go after that. Someone please comment in the comments below if they actually think that's true, because at this point, he literally said on live oh, I'll return all the Louis V bags that you bought because she made a joke. It is hilarious, but I think the one key takeaway from this is that Taylor was never the prize. He is never and will never be the prize. And there has been long time conspiracy theory that the reason why Alondria held on for as long as she did was because, Taylor comes from a rich family and, she was trying to get that bag. Do I think that's true? Absolutely not, but I am happy that my girl Alondra is freed from the shackles of Taylor. I'm happy that her mind is free and she is dating Nick, and Nick treats her like a queen, so we stand her all day,